way back when I had the red and black lumberjack with the hat to match. It's way back Wednesday, guys. Today, we're calling this Attitude of Gratitude, and what I'm going to talk about today are the people that I feel kind of help me the most on my journey through this whole martial arts life that I've chosen for myself. And in many ways, martial arts is an individual sport, an individual pursuit, but no one gets here alone. We don't train alone. You know, we certainly don't come to our success based solely on our own merits. So I'm going to talk about a few times that some people helped me out. And it's interesting because some of these people I still have great relationships with, and some of these people I don't. But even the people that I don't, you know, when a relationship goes sour, sometimes you're left with feelings of resentment. But what I find I'm left with are just the good memories. You know, the bad stuff kind of rolls off my back, or at least I try to let it roll off my back. But the good stuff stays, so that's what I'm going to talk about today. So the first time that I really had someone kind of extend a helping hand to me was when I was 16 years old. Now, my situation was as such. What my day would be like was this. I would wake up at 5:30 in the morning, get myself ready, go walk to the bus, which would come around, 6:30, get to school, go through a full day of high school. As soon as the bell rang at like 2:15, I'd get my stuff together. I would walk to the McDonald's, which was, a quarter mile away, and I would work a shift from 2:30 to like 6:30. As soon as 6:30 would come, my parents would drive. It would pick me up. I would get in the car, go directly to jiu-jitsu, get out, and train from 7:30 to 9:30. As soon as that was done, wait for my parents to pick me up. They were always late. I was always the last one there. So they'd probably pick me up around like 10:15. I'd get home, the gym was a little bit away. I'd get home around like 10:45, eat, shower. We're talking about, now it's about midnight. Do homework until I passed out at like 1 in the morning, 1:30, and then do the whole thing over again. So Monday through Friday, I was going on somewhere between 3.5 to 4 hours of sleep and just existing that way. So the hardest day for me was Friday. When Friday would roll around, I was a zombie. It was like a narcoleptic. And fortunately or unfortunately, at this point in my life, I hadn't discovered the wonders of caffeine yet. So I was struggling. I was going on just young ambition. And I can remember the way the school was set up was classes would be over, and it was like an office building. I would wait outside the office building in front of the, they had like a picnic table there, and I would wait on the picnic table for my dad to pick me up. And I can remember what happened was my instructor at the time had closed up the gym, and he's walking out, and he sees me, and I'm asleep, just face down, asleep on this picnic table. And he's locking the building. And he's like, "Brian?" And he kind of jostles me like a math teacher would jostle someone that fell asleep during calculus. He goes, "Brian, what are you still doing here, man?" I'm like, "Oh, hey, sorry, I'm just waiting for my dad." It's like, "Bro, you okay? You look like you're hurting. You got some bags under your eyes. You look like you're 50 years old. You're 15. What's going on here?" And I was like, I'm just really tired. And I'm in my McDonald's uniform because I just came there. And he's like, why are you so tired? And so I explained to him my day and how, once Friday rolls around, I'm like, well, I'm looking for tomorrow because I kind of sleep in a little on Saturday. And he's like, "Why are you doing this? Why are you working so much? You're a young kid. You should be out enjoying yourself." And I said, "Well, not for nothing. The reason I'm working is to afford here." Because at the time I was making $5.15. That was minimum wage, showing my age a little bit. And it was $100 a month. So, I had to pack in some money. My parents weren't paying for it. I was paying for it for myself. And then, the cost of geese and I was competing at the time, and all of the various costs associated with it. And he goes, "You're doing all this just so you can come here?" I said, I mean, yeah. And he stopped and he thought about it for a second. And he goes, "You know what, man? You don't have to do that anymore." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You don't have to pay to come here anymore." He goes, "I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the hard work you're putting in. Tell some people about the school. You go to high school. Tell some people about it. If you can get some people to try the class, I appreciate it, but you don't have to worry about anything." And I did not pay for the whole time I was in high school. I didn't have to pay to go to that gym anymore. And man, that did a lot for me. Then I was able to cut my hours back at McDonald's. I didn't have to I could take a weekend shift and, just work, because on the weekends it was like I worked 2 or 3 hours. I could sleep. I could, relax after school. I could get my work done. And that made a huge difference for me. And I was really burning the candle at both ends. And I don't know if I even would have been able to continue doing what I was doing had this person not helped me there. And so I remember that. You can't let everyone train for free. It would be wonderful if you could, if we were in some higher society where we didn't have to worry about providing for ourselves. But it's something I remember, and a debt I still feel I kind of owe. So, in very special circumstances, I try to extend the same courtesy because I know what it meant to me. The next time that I had someone really help me out was when I decided to learn how to strike. I remember it was easier for me to learn jiu-jitsu. There weren't a lot of Muay Thai gyms, and boxing is not an organized sport the way jiu-jitsu is. And I started showing up. I had a striking coach who's actually currently at our gym now, and he had gone on a hiatus. I had a Muay Thai coach too, and he had moved out to Thailand for a while. So it was kind of on my own. And they recommended the name of this boxing gym, and I went there. And there were a lot of pros and cons to this gym. And let's just say the cons were more apparent than the pros initially. And I started taking private lessons from the gym owner, not realizing that the gym owner was, sadly, a hopeless drug addict. And he was on a lot of prescription painkillers that would just make him kind of pass out. And I can remember I was doing regular private lessons. I was looking at fight professionally, so I was doing a private lesson Monday through Friday. And he would just be passed out in the corner. Sometimes he would give me busy work to do. Like we were supposed to do 10 rounds of pads, he would have me do 10 rounds on the bag. And he would just kind of shout out combinations in between nodding off. But there was one guy at the gym that I would spar with, Derek. And Derek took a liking to me. Just because he saw me, Derek was actually unemployed at the time. So even though he was in his 30s, he would be there every day. He was the first guy I saw and the last guy when I would leave. He almost took this period of unemployment before his benefits ran out to just train full time. He was a very accomplished amateur boxer. And he won the local Golden Gloves, the regional Golden Gloves, and then he was competing in the national circuit. And I would spar with him, which is giving me more credit. I was basically a walking punching bag for him. But I was in shape, and a lot of guys, Derek would say, "Hey, give me 5 rounds." Guys would go 2 rounds with him, and then they would look for a way out or find an excuse. Whereas I would actually give him the 5 rounds. So he took a shining to me. He liked it. And he used to see me come in, and one day I saw Brian was just passed out, and I was visibly annoyed with it. I was like, oh, here we go again. And the sessions were never great. Even when I would get pad work, it was like jab, cross, hook, lather, rinse, repeat. And so one day Derek saw Brian passed out, and he was more upset than me. He screamed at Brian. He was like, this kid comes in here every day. He's working so hard. He deserves better than what you're giving him. He goes, "You just stay in the corner and sleep. I'm training him from now on. Get your gloves, kid." And he sat there, and he taught me how to box. And it was weird, too. I felt uncomfortable because I remember I was still paying the gym, so I was still paying Brian. But this guy, Derek, was helping me. He didn't want money. He was just like, "Hey," he used to call me MMA guy. Like, "Listen, MMA guy, you just come here, you work, don't worry about anything." And Derek kept helping me for free. Later, he took me to, I didn't realize he was only boxing at that gym because his job, which he had later lost, had located him there. He had another boxing coach who was phenomenal that he would then take me to that was in a different area. And this whole time, he didn't want anything. The only thing he wanted was that I would work hard and that I would spar with him, which eventually I like to think I got to the point where I could give him some good rounds, that he got something out of it. But once again, I don't know if I would have even made it in boxing had it not been for Derek. I definitely wouldn't have made it at that gym. And that help really allowed me to pursue striking and fulfill one of my dreams, which was to compete professionally in mixed martial arts. I even had a couple of boxing matches along the way. You know, I don't really flaunt it, but I am 3-0 in boxing as well. And then on the other side of things was my original kickboxing coach, a gentleman, Shannon Maseo, who was one of the most accomplished fighters out of the Tiger Shulman fight team. And I can remember, I've spoken about him in past videos, but Shannon, we were introduced through a mutual friend, Bob Neal. And Shannon was in an area, Danbury, Connecticut. And he was right next to the mall. And his school did very well. It was an affluent region, and he was in high demand. But no one there was a fighter, okay? I mean, people were fighting the alternative minimum tax. They weren't fighting mixed martial arts. And so Shannon was a fighter himself. And so he wanted to see someone else that had that same passion that he had. And I can remember I came in, broke as a joke, wanting to learn how to strike. I hadn't been working with Derek yet. So I didn't even, I remember he gave me hand wraps, and I think I tied a bow around my wrist. I didn't even know what to do with them. And he basically, he didn't want to train me for free. I think he made me pay like $20 a session. And maybe it was even 10 at one point. It was just something to symbolically show that I was contributing, that I was going to value it. But I knew later, I found out he was charging like between like $100 and $150 for an hour. And he would cancel those private lessons just so he could work with me. And he wasn't watching the clock. Sometimes we would go 2 hours just to get, and I was terrible. Like, close my eyes every time a punch came at me, stick my chin in the air, step my right hand when I would throw, or step my right foot when I would throw my right hand. Every mistake you could make, and he just sat there patiently. And another guy, in fact, the only reason I ended up not working with him and going with Derek instead was, sadly, he eventually moved out to Long Island. So I wasn't able to continue my training. But he even took some heat from Tiger Shulman's a little bit for letting in an outsider. That is something that I think is more done now, but it wasn't really done at the time. But he went to bat for me and eventually got me to work with the fight team and be welcomed into an area that I never would have been welcomed into had I not done that. And that really opened a lot of doors for me and allowed me to, you know, become a more well-rounded martial artist. And it was something he didn't have to do. He didn't know me from a hole in the wall. And he just took a chance and had faith in me, and that was something I never forgot. And then there's a million people, but I already talked too much, so I can't let this video go on forever. But I'm going to shout out 2 other people that helped me out a lot. And these guys helped me out not so much with being instructors. These guys helped me out in a situation that I was in. I used to be in a spot in LaGrange, and I used to have a very small storefront. I had one storefront, and I had an opportunity. A gym above me went out of business to do a huge expansion, to triple my size. I was going to go from like, oh man, I think it was 1,500 square feet to just under 4,000 or just under 5,000. But I had to do the build out. And I knew nothing and know nothing about contracting. I would say I know more now simply because I know that I know nothing, which I think that was Plato who said that is the true measure of intellect. But I learned it the hard way. I hired some gentlemen, some smooth-talking contractor who took me for a ride, took a lot of my money, didn't do things up to code, left halfway through, and I was beside myself. I was out a ton of money, all the money I had and all the money I could borrow. The job wasn't done. My landlord is very upset at me, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was like, well, I'm on the second floor. You know, maybe if I just close my eyes and jump off this balcony, all my problems will go away. I'm saying that somewhat facetiously. I was in a bad spot. And I was like, man, my business was doing well. Why did I do this expansion? And I was just every day coming in looking like I didn't want to be there. And then one day, one of the parents of a kid that was in my kids' class, the student's name was Aiden and the dad's name was Travis. And Travis saw me and he was like, just this big jolly guy. And he's like, what's up, man? Why are you looking so down? And I was like, I emptied out on all the problems. He's like, I knew those guys were jokers. You need some help? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I kind of did some painting, some contracting on the side. I can help you out with some of this stuff, you know? I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. And I told him what I needed done. And it was not an insignificant amount of work. And he's like, I got my buddy Noel. He'll help me out. He's got too much time on his hands. So Noel and Travis, they just went to work for me. And I gave them what I could, which was not what they deserved. And man, these guys just fixed. They were like, we always fix people's mistakes. That used to be what we did. And I remember they got to work for me round the clock. And at a certain point, I was going away for like a martial arts conference. And this place was looking better, but still a disaster. And we were fast approaching the deadline to when we had to open. And I can remember I went away for, I want to say it was like a week. And I came back. And when I came back, the first place I drove to was the gym. And I opened it up. And it was perfect. I mean, perfect. Everything was fixed. Everything was up to code. I remember the one thing they couldn't fix was the guys had screwed up putting the hot water in. So hot was cold and cold was hot on our shower, which was funny when people didn't know that. They would take a shower. They'd be like, you're out of hot water. I'm like, no, it's reversed. But otherwise, it was perfect. I can remember, it's even hard for me to talk about and keep it together. I was crying my eyes out, just tears of joy. Because it was like my biggest fear, and then it just came together, all because these guys helped me. And I was like a young girl watching The Notebook for the first time. It would have been embarrassing if I wasn't by myself. And that gave me faith to be like, no, this can work. And we were incredibly successful there, and we expanded into the spot we're in now. And I never forgot that, and I always owed them. I gave Travis and his son, because Travis was also in and out training from time to time. I gave them life. He had another son actually that was in there too. I gave his whole family lifetime memberships. I still see Aiden pop in from time to time. They moved on, but anytime they come back, the door will always be open for them. Because I never forgot how they helped me out when I was at a very, very low point in my life, and I really needed it, and probably was too proud to even ask for help, and they just volunteered it. And all of these people, Gene, Derek, Shannon, Travis, Noel, all guys that really gave me a debt that I don't know, or really gave me a lot of help, and almost I feel like I have a debt that I can't ever even really repay, but I just try to remember what they did, and hopefully I can someday be as important to someone else as they were to me. And that's what I got for you guys today, way back Wednesday.